Welcome to Small Talk, where each week we sit down to discuss the sermon-based small group questions at Wallula Christian Church.
Hello and welcome back to Wallula's weekly podcast, Small Talk. My name is Zach Bolin, student pastor here at Wallula Christian Church, joined by Craig Archer, worship pastor, and Lance Kaufman, lead pastor. We are back. I think, did we take off last week after Easter? I think we did. So it's been 2 weeks. And we're back on. So if you saw us at Easter for the first time, then welcome. We do this every week. We're excited that you're with us. We have gone back to 2 Corinthians. We were away from it. Now we're back to it after the Easter season. And we're starting a new series called The Called Church. And today we're looking at 2 Corinthians chapter 5 with Lance's sermon called Ambassadors. So, with all that being said, we will jump into it after we do our fun question. And what a question it is. It goes like this. What is the least amount of money you would accept to eat a spider? So how low can we go to see what you'll do before you finally eat a spider? How much money would it take? Craig.
I would say about $500.
$500?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to tip my hand to what I have.
We talked about this earlier. That's for a dead one. If that sucker's alive,
oh, no way.
Let's double it.
Whoa.
$1,000. I really, just
right.
Don't really want to do it.
No, of course not.
It would take a little bit.
Yeah.
That's
fair.
And I don't know Lori was like, oh, if it's just like a little itty bitty.
Yeah.
That's a different story. But I'm picturing like
a lot of questions here. How big is a spider?
Yeah.
Is it dead or alive? Is it?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it like a black widow poisonous? Are you ingesting?
Yeah. If you're eating an alive poisonous spider, you gotta.
Yeah. What's the result of
this?
Yeah. That would do some damage.
We don't know.
Right.
Actually. Yeah.
But like a little daddy long legs, that's gonna. Yeah. That's not much.
Barely anything.
But $500 still to do that.
Is that a spider?
Daddy long legs? I thought it was.
Yeah. I don't know.
I
know what you're talking about.
The tiny one that everyone says
it
like
has to have 8 legs.
Yeah,
right?
everyone says about it. Do you know like what people say about daddy long legs? They say as a kid because you see them all the time.
Legs? I don't know.
Oh no, that they're extremely poisonous. But the only reason they don't is that they're not a danger to us because their fangs aren't big enough to bite us. That was sort of the lore.
Never heard that.
That was the lore of growing up. They're like these
that.
things are crazy, and then come to find out, none of that's true. I think because they don't bite.
Yeah.
So people are like,
I remember playing with them when I was.
Oh yeah.
That must have been a Texas thing or something, right?
You're like, I remember playing with them. I do too. Like playing with some of the legs over here, and then.
Oh.
I don't want to get too much into it.
Yeah.
Watch it walk in a circle.
What? I didn't do that.
Sorry. Kids are brutal. I'm just look.
Yeah.
They're. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Anyway,
qualities of a serial killer.
Yeah, I know. It kind of.
Welcome to your true crime podcast.
In Texas, ants are a big deal. Like we have these big red and black ants, and sometimes I would just take a black one and then walk over to the red pile and just drop it in there and just watch because they always fight. Oh. So sometimes I put them both in a cup and then watch them fight, and then sometimes I just take one and then be like, "Good luck," and throw the ant in.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
You spend a lot of time with insects.
Oh yeah, I do find them fascinating. It's true.
All right,
just saying.
Very good. How much would you take, Zach?
Okay.
Yeah, you were shocked at my answer. So
I was very shocked. I said just a really good dare. I mean, I would if just a really good dare. I would. Your kids bought me. You bought me bugs anyway one time from college. It came in the
crispy dried up bugs.
Yeah, the freeze dried ones. And you said your kid said, "Oh, I bet Zach would eat one of these," and I was like, "Oh yeah." Mm-hmm. So I was like, I did it more just because I wanted to.
Just for honor.
Just for your kids, I wanted them to be like, "We didn't buy this for nothing," and that wasn't even a dare. That was no one even. I wouldn't have done it on my own, but I'm like, "Oh, you want to see me eat one?" They didn't even see it. This is just
we recorded it.
This is just for me to tell you,
right? Just so the myth of Zach would live on.
It's not
in the Archer household.
Just for your kids' sake, I did it, and it wasn't even like I didn't get paid anything. So yeah, I guess it does depend on the type of spider. If it was alive, that really would. I would need some cash. I would need It's not just a dare. But if we're talking like freeze dry type thing that you could buy in a store,
Yeah.
you know, the novelty stores of whatever Beatles, whatever, I would do it. If someone's like, I'll do it if you do it, I'm like, okay, cool. That's all it took. If it's alive and if it's kind of big and I don't have to worry about being bit or whatever, I'd say $100. If you're talking about like a live spider, where let's say 100.
Yeah.
Hey man, I can do a lot with $100. We can
Sure.
I could take my kids to Culver's one time.
Yeah.
Place is expensive.
It'll almost pay for the emergency room
right.
copay.
Well, that's the thing. If it's not a poisonous one, but yeah.
You're probably gonna be okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
$100 is still pretty nice.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the science of how.
Yeah, I know. Oh, yeah, I
get
know.
to the stomach, is the acid gonna, is it still gonna poison you? I don't know. I don't know all the science.
Does it go? Yeah, have to be like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It helps to be ignorant.
into the blood.
Be like,
I
I'm
don't
sure
know.
it'll be fine.
Right. Right.
What about you? What's your limit?
$15,000.
No.
I want a car. I want a car.
For one spider.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I think
Zach's like, take me to Culver's.
I know.
Lance wants a vehicle.
I just was like, on a dare, I'll do it. Yeah.
I don't need to do that.
Okay.
And I don't need to impress anybody.
That's right. Yeah, I guess that's true.
And I don't care that much about Craig's kids. That's not true. But I don't need to. No.
Yeah, Lance doesn't have a standard to live up to.
No,
Right.
yeah.
Of eating bugs, but you
I don't.
sure do.
I'm not trying to live it. Well, I guess I am. If your kids were already thinking I would do it.
Well, because they know
Right.
about
The worms.
the worms
Yeah.
at camp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which we don't need to get into. That's not even the part of the question.
Yeah.
No one's asking about that.
Yeah.
Um,
We talked about that on Sunday for some reason. I don't remember why.
the worms.
Yes.
We talked on.
My kids, and my
Oh.
family talked about that on Sunday
Okay.
at lunch.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do. We
Yeah.
talk about
Other people.
we talk about Zach's shenanigans.
All right. There's some people listening who are like, I don't know what they're talking about. We'll just let that go.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
It didn't take $100 though.
That's
That's what.
Actually, it was $1,500 this past time. I think it was $5 a worm.
Zach ate worms at church camp
Yeah.
to help raise money for the mission
Yep.
that they were donating to at church camp several years ago.
It was $5 a worm.
He's much more mature now.
Yeah.
This was last summer.
6 years ago, I did it, and it raised $9-something. So I had to eat like 300 worms. I think that was.
It's terrible.
Yeah,
Let's keep
and then they
going.
did it this past one, and I was like, I'll try it again. It's been 6 years, and it was like $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the math is. 300 worms or something. It was too many. All right.
It's terrible.
Anyway, it's effective. The missionaries were thankful.
Yeah.
$1,500. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. We are looking at, like I said, 2 Corinthians chapter 5. The two questions we're going to be looking at is number 4 and 10. Question number 4 says, Lance suggested that we ought to, quote unquote, lose control for Jesus once in a while. Do you agree or not? And what do you think it looks like to be beside yourself for Jesus, but in control for others? And so we have these sort of split ideas of losing control and then also being in our right mind when it comes to losing control for Jesus, but being in our right mind when it comes to dealing with others. So what does that look like practically? And then, anyway, just your thoughts on all of that, Craig. You answered however you want.
Well, no, I was thinking about, what does that exactly mean? Like, lose control, and thinking about Paul writing this letter. What did that look like in his life? And I went, if you read through the passage that we had on Sunday, so he starts talking about this thought of losing control. In verse 13, if you go down a little bit, and you get to verse 17, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. And I was thinking about that, if we truly believe that if we are in Christ, a new creation, then we are losing control of our old self, who we used to be. So there's a little bit of loosening up of our grip on trying to be the king of our own life and sit in our throne and do things how we want to do them. And so, to the outside world, the people around us, if we are living for Jesus and following after him, it will look like, it's like, oh, yeah, that's kind of crazy. Some of the decisions we make, how even we were talking about in staff meeting, the book we're reading, like trying to live a more simple life in order to get rid of distractions and keep our attention focused on Jesus. And so the act of simplifying possessions and adjusting our budget and being able to borrow and give and do these things, like, wow, that looks kind of wild sometimes to people around us. And then, I was thinking about Paul, thinking about Jesus' disciples and what their lives looked like around this time that Paul was writing the letter, and so just post-ascension and the things that they went through. And like I was listening to, we talked about it, Wesley Huff on that the podcast you mentioned, Diary of a CEO. Towards the beginning of it, he's talking about how we can trust the Bible and the guys that wrote some of these things, because look at the evidence of their life. Paul shipwrecked, put in prison, beaten, all these things for the sake of others knowing Jesus. John, when he writes Revelation, is exiled onto an island because he couldn't stop talking about Jesus. Like, they went to the furthest extreme that they could to honor Jesus' name. And then what Paul says too, like, we believe that Jesus died once and for all, and so we're going to give our lives over to that. And so when you see someone living in such a way, and it's like, that's what we're called to do, like live in such a way it's like, we truly believe this, and here, I'm going to let this play out in my life. And so that's what I've been thinking about, is like losing control, is like, we see the extreme of some people's lives. Is our life going to look like that? Not necessarily, but in our context, in our own life, like, what will that look like to lose control? It's going to look different for everybody.
Okay, we had all my answers, but I said the whole idea of lose control is, it's not reckless, but it's this total surrender. And so because we think of lose control like we don't have it, but when you look at how we live our lives, so much of it is just we try so desperately to control. Even when you talk about the spiders, you said like, oh, I don't care. I'm not trying to impress anyone. I don't even, and there's something kind of freeing of like, when we follow Jesus, it's like, that's the only one. He's the only one I'm trying to impress. And so if I have to look silly, if I have to look whatever, because the world says, well, that's crazy, that's okay. I'm not trying to impress anyone. And it's a hard thing to get to that point of like, I've lost control of trying to be the best or look the best or do anything. I'm only trying to pursue Jesus. So I have this bold faith that may seem crazy to everyone else when it comes to forgiving my enemies or living sacrificially, like you said. I was looking at verse 15, this identity shift, that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him. And so this control of life, of all this stuff. But on the flip side, when he says to be when it comes to other people, we're in our right mind. So it's not this sort of, I surrender everything to Jesus and to others. No. Actually, I give whatever to Jesus. I give everything to Jesus. But when it comes to you and everyone else, I am very strategic about how I'm going to live this out. I'm in my right mind. I'm thinking through this very carefully when it comes to the relationships I have with others. He's thoughtful for how he engages with people, Paul is. There's self-control. There's wisdom in relationships. There's clarity. Meeting people where they are. I think about like, what does it look like to be in control? And so it doesn't take long to be on social media before you realize, man, there's a lot of people who are just throwing out any type of stuff. And one of the things that gets me as a Christian, talking to Christians and maybe other Christians, sometimes I feel like maybe we could be a little conspiratorial about just anything. Forget faith, take that off, but just at anything, we sometimes, maybe because I just see it a lot. And a lot of times I think, man, it doesn't do you any good when we're chasing these rabbit trails of just random crazy ideas about anything, and then turn around and be like, now follow Jesus too. Like you post some crazy thing, and then like the next day be like, don't forget Easter and Jesus. And I'm like, idea is not helping this idea. And so trying to be intentional about like, what is my character? What do I, when I'm engaging with people, what are they seeing? Not just being kind to people, but also having a credibility. And that's just a small thing. But I think in everything I do, there is this, I'm in my right mind when dealing with other people. That randomly came up as an example. That's not really the one thing I'm trying to tell everyone is like, stop being conspiratorial. But I'm just saying in so many ways we can turn people away, even in the small things that we do. So being intentional about how we engage with people. And Paul isn't chaotic in how he's engaging, but he's very strategic about like, hey, I've lost control of my life. It's all for Jesus. Mm-hmm. And then how can I engage with people that is best effective for Jesus? So you're losing control in your right mind. And it's kind of this dichotomy.
Right.
But yeah, those are some of the ideas I had.
Yeah. Yeah, great ideas. And I want to just first, in answering this question, say I agree with Lance. He's right. And so I just want to get that out of the way. And
do you agree? Oh yeah, Lance suggested. Do you agree?
I agree, absolutely.
Yeah.
Losing control. Obviously, the idea here is that we're granting control of our life to Jesus. That His love is going to compel us to move and go forward, and then we're actually in our right mind. That's the right frame of mind to treat others well and to show Jesus off to them. And hopefully, they kind of catch that a little bit from us. They see followers of Jesus living differently, and they say there's something about that. That's interesting. Maybe they'll say that's kind of weird. Part of this idea, to me, what stood out, and this idea of being beside ourselves for Jesus, kind of out of our mind, some people might say, describe it like that, is just there should be a point where people say, "Oh, that your life looks different." What is it about your life? Or we should all strive a little bit, I think, to follow Jesus to the point where somebody is saying, maybe that's too far, right? And I just wonder, what would the world look like if we all just maybe went a little too far? I think that's part of what's going on here, just in the context, is that sort of theologically, Paul's preaching this gospel and taking Jesus to the Gentiles, and if there are folks, if some of his opponents are Judaizers, which are just a group of Jewish Christians who thought, in order to be a real Christian, then you still have to maintain the Jewish law and do that. And so they would say, oh, well, Paul, this whole idea of, forgetting the law and not being circumcised, that's a step too far. That's too far. And I just think, what is it about my life that maybe is people would look at and say, man, that's a step too far. I've been watching this. Nate Bargatze hosts a game show. It's called The Greatest Average American, and so they just ask questions. The 100 average Americans, and that kind of thing, and ask questions. And he has a certain point in the show, people have to guess how many questions he'll get right or whatever. And one episode, it was name the top 50 all-time grossing music artists. Okay. Right? There's some question similar to that. And they're always making fun of him on the show. That they said, well, Nate growing up didn't get to listen to most of these musical artists. He couldn't listen to rock and roll music until he was 18 or whatever, kind of thing. He grew up in a Christian household and didn't all those kinds of rules or whatever, and they're making fun of him for that. And I just thought, a step too far, right? That we want to keep our kids from being influenced by these movies or this music or this whatever reels or whatever the deal is in the world today, right? This social media platform, yeah, our families are going to look a little different because of some of those things, and hopefully they'll act a little different because of some of those things and reflect Jesus a little more. But somebody's going to say, well, that's a step too far. Just let your kid fit in, let them, whatever. That's a step too far, and we used other examples of areas of service, maybe, giving up your time to serve, those less fortunate than us. Somebody's going to say, well, that's step too far, and take that step for Jesus. So to me, that's what I intended when, and I think what Paul is driving at here a little bit, and letting the love of Christ compel us or control us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I think that the whole, sometimes people are going to question that it may be other Christians.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So just so, if in case you're wondering, like, oh, is the world noticing? Like, sometimes it's the Christians who will push back against, like, is this too far? Is this too much? Too much Jesus? Too much following him?
Right. Yeah.
Don't be surprised if you're stepping out of your comfort zone if the pushback you get more is from believers. In number 10. It says, in what ways can we be ambassadors for Jesus? Are we more limited in this capacity than Paul and the other apostles? Why or why not? And are we in a better position than the apostles in any way? So in what ways can we be ambassadors for Jesus? That's kind of the big idea.
Yeah.
What do you think, Craig?
Yeah, anytime I hear that word or think about an ambassador, it reminds me when I was in high school. I had a friend that his older brother, after he graduated college, he became like a U.S. ambassador, and then like lived and worked at an embassy somewhere. I don't remember where.
Right.
And I just remember before he did that, they sent out like federal agents to come to his parents' house, and so sat down with his parents for like 2 hours to do this interview.
Oh wow!
And then they went to every neighbor's house to conduct the same type of interviews in like old places of work, and like it was just so thorough.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure that
right.
whoever they're sending to represent
the
United States wherever he's going, like that they're going to do well and represent the country well, that has a background that's good and sound, and nothing's going to come up and to the detriment of himself and the country. And so
were you interviewed by these federal agents?
I was not.
I see.
Wasn't that close to him.
I see.
I did do an interview with a local detective for someone in the fire department recently that is going to work for the fire department. So
why a detective?
It was just a background check.
Oh,
He called me.
I didn't know is that okay? Never mind.
Yeah. Making sure he represents the fire department.
Yeah.
Okay. It seemed weird. Like we got a detective to do the background.
I know.
check
Yeah. I was like, wow. Okay. I thought the fire department would do it themselves.
Yeah. Or they just call them up.
I don't know.
Okay.
It's like 10 minutes. It was not the hours of.
Have you seen them
time.
playing with matches before?
What?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah,
don't mock the background check. I don't know. We want. Yeah. It's not the playing with matches. It's like, could he put them out after?
Yeah.
That's
what
true.
happens after
playing
they were
with them?
lit?
Yeah.
Did he?
Anyway, sorry.
Yes. But that's what I think about.
Yeah.
That whole just the being thorough to make sure that things are going to go well and be represented well.
Right.
And it's that same thing. It's like, as followers of Jesus, we want to be able to represent well and not, misrepresent or be confusing to those around us. And so that's just one thing I thought about was like, how are we going about doing that? There's not an interview process. So we really have to like check our own heart and mind. And then, the body of Christ does, we lean on each other for those things as well. But it is an interesting question to think about the capacity of Paul and the other apostles and how they did that, and then our world today, because it's like they were on foot and getting on boats, and that was like their travel and going from town to town, Paul's missionary journeys. And so you think now it's like, well, we got technology at our fingertips, and
Right.
we're able to record this podcast and
Mm-hmm.
put it out in the world. And we've had listeners in
From other
countries, and it's like you never know where that stuff's going to end up. So it is like there is an element of we do have maybe a bigger capacity, a further reach, that sort of thing.
Right.
But at the same time, I think the culture we live in, it's really easy to forget about like who's right next door to us, and the face-to-face interactions that we have the potential of having. Recently, when we did our Bible time with our kids, we read when Jesus said, the greatest commandment, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and then love your neighbor. And that just like really puzzled Elsie for a second. She's like, love your neighbor. Because then in the Bible story, the kids' Bible we were reading, it's like, well, so it asks, who's your neighbor? It's like, well, as Christians, we're supposed to love people,
Right.
everyone around us. And so she's like, how are we supposed to do that? Because she's like, so everyone in Lansing is our neighbor? And I'm kind of like, well, yeah.
It could be.
But there's a lot of them that are strangers, and will remain strangers. So we were just like, you got to think about this bubble we live in, like even just our street or the houses right next to us, the people that we interact with. Those are the people that we can have an influence on, and so we could try to dwindle that down, make it seem a little less overwhelming.
So if one of them gets jumped on the side of the street, and they're laying on the side, what do you?
What?
I know he's
In the
pointing
answer
at the Good Samaritan.
who is my neighbor?
But I don't know if with your 5-year-old daughter.
I know,
you
I'm
wanna-
joking. Like,
Yeah,
when the modern parable of who is my neighbor.
When you see Mrs. Smith
it's like,
beat up in the ditch,
what's a
don't walk past her.
yes? What's a
Yeah.
Gentile? The
Yeah.
equivalent of a Gentile
Yeah.
to a 5 or 6-year-old.
Yeah.
that they would-
I was wondering, how do you reconcile that with like stranger danger?
Right, yeah.
You know, people say stranger danger.
Yeah.
With your
For a little kid.
little kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another podcast.
Because there is an element of danger in it. And you're like, well,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I'm not. Yeah.
well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's my thought is like,
Yeah.
to a certain degree, we do have more capacity,
Right.
because
Yeah.
of the age we live in. But yeah, it's like at the same time, we can't forget about who we have right in front of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. In what ways can we be ambassadors? It's funny. With both my kids being in middle school now, we're kind of in a sweet spot where everyone does their own thing. Like they know how to do their own laundry. They know how to, when they come home, they do their homework. It's not that everything is perfect. Like, especially Graham a little bit, like it can be kind of, he's just like, are we done? Is this cool? Like he's fine, but he's like, I'd rather go do my own thing. So, we're getting into middle school stuff, but it's been a while since I've been upset, like because they didn't do something. But this past Sunday, I think it was Easter. I kind of got a little annoyed because we're getting ready to leave. It's after the end of the service. We're sitting by the door, and I told Graham, Selah was helping out with the nursery, and I said, "Hey, Graham, can you go tell Selah, let's go?" And because she was talking with someone, and so he goes off, and then he comes back, and she says she's not coming, and I said, "What? Excuse me? Why not?" And he goes, "Well, she said because I'm the one who told her." I don't, she doesn't have to do what I say. And I said, did you tell her that Dad said that she has to come? And he goes, I told her that. And I was like, if she was told Dad said, and she still is like, no, I started to get whatever. And because even though Graham's the one doing that, he's my ambassador in this situation. I'm like, are you telling me that you heard the message came from me? Anyway, it turns out Graham was not a good messenger because what Selah told him was, I'm supposed to clean up, and I'm helping them clean up by the end, and then I'll come. Had he conveyed that part, but instead he just said, she said no. And so now it's the breakdown of the messenger.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit of that thing where I had given him this authority. Dad said, we need to come. And so if he just went up and said, let's go, she has every right to say, no, I'm not listening to you. But with my message, it started to get to me because I was like, hey, he's my ambassador in this. And so, realizing that that's what we do for Jesus, in what ways can we be ambassadors? So we carry this message of reconciliation, like we are the ones who are speaking on behalf. Sometimes we get students and adults will get nervous about like, well, what do I say? What if they ask a question? I'm like, I don't know. That's a great question. How about, what are you going to say though? Instead of worrying, like planning out like, well, then if they ask this, and then if they ask this, I'm like, how about just start with, what are you going to say right off the bat? Like, what's the first thing you're going to say? Like, what's the message you want to give? Worry about the follow-up stuff later. Just, do you even have a plan for what is your message that you're going to share? In verse 20, it talks about how we appeal to people personally. We are therefore Christ ambassadors, as though God was making his appeal to us. And so he uses these words like implore or urge or beg. Like, this is what he wants us to do in this world, is to connect with people and also not just the message, but we're Christ ambassadors by the lives that we live. In verse 17, we are a new creation. So it's not enough just to say like, I had this message, you need to know Jesus, you need to turn from your life, God loves you, all this stuff, but also like live it out. Like let your life not be a distraction. Let your life be evident of all of that. So anyway, it means not just what we say, but like you have this authority in what you say, but also in how you live. Everything about how I live should be representing Jesus. So I barely scratched the surface on that part, but this kind of threw me, Lance, when you said, are we more limited than Paul or the apostles? I never really thought about it. I'm like, it's the same calling, right, that we have. And I just was like, I could kind of argue both. Like you said, we're digitally, it can go further. The church is established, and so we can kind of go to Honduras and we can spread the message there. And so we have the whole New Testament, and we've seen it play out, and we've seen, all these other Christians throughout history who've lived it out. So we have their examples and the sort of resource that we can tap into. However, they were eyewitnesses. They saw it firsthand. They had more, I won't say life and death. There's some Christians who are in life and death situations, but the stakes were higher for them. And so there's more of a motivation, I guess. But whereas it's kind of really commonplace and can be too easy sometimes. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Does this make sense? Okay. Anyway, I'm going to stop there. So are we in a better position? Yes and no. We have the whole New Testament, but also I think with them, they realized where they were at and the importance of it. So, but yeah, it's one I hadn't really thought about before, but
great stuff. I love the idea of, you talked about this friend who worked in an embassy or became an ambassador or whatever, and all these background checks. And why are they doing background checks? Well, because they want to make sure, do the very best they can to not necessarily ensure future behavior, but to make sure there's no skeletons in the closet or whatever, that sort of thing. And I just think about this idea of representing Jesus. Maybe you've heard people say, you might be the only Jesus somebody ever sees, or I've heard folks say, well, there's really 5 Gospels. There's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, but then there's your story, and how the difference Jesus has made in your life, and so well, in that way we're all ambassadors. We're representing Jesus. We're trying to show him off in our lives, and we don't, you hear about Christian leaders in the church, maybe pastors or whatever, who get themselves in trouble doing A, B, and C, and embarrass themselves, their families, in Jesus, and people are turned off to the church and to Jesus, perhaps, because of that behavior. And so my first thought is, in that regard, every one of us has this idea of losing control, of giving control over to Jesus and then living like that in our lives. We want to be ambassadors for him in that way. I think that's super important. This idea of being the messenger, we're sent with this authority and that messenger. And then the thing I love about that story about Graham and Sailor, your kids there, is that, Graham comes back with this less than complete story, and we won't dive into why but a little sibling rivalry, little, and sometimes we can have that same kind of attitude with people, that little bit of judgment, that little bit of stick it to them attitude with people. And man, that's not our job. That's not part of the message, right? That's not, we have this opportunity to speak where the Bible speaks and try to be silent where it's silent, and that Jesus is the true king, the judge. We don't get to play that role. But to kind of get back to, so I love those ideas. I just think that's so cool. You guys brought those out, and this idea of, are we better equipped or less equipped than the apostles to be ambassadors for Jesus? Kind of the heart of this question was, there's a train of thought that says that, to be an apostle, that capital A apostle in the New Testament, I think the New Testament teaches, well, that's a limited role and a limited time and place. And so is to be an ambassador, to be somebody who speaks for God, who speaks on the behalf of Jesus, was that a limited time and a limited space kind of role? And while I think a case can be made that, the principles here, I think, transfer to us or whatever, that we still represent Jesus in this world, and we ought to live in a way that honors him. And so the way, I think you briefly mentioned it, Zach, that we're better off than the apostles. The apostles have that special role in that special time because they didn't have the New Testament, that they were speaking forth the Word of God. And I suppose if you say, well, we have an advantage, the advantage is that we have the Word of God, that we have the whole of Scripture to study and to teach and to share. And so I suppose in that way we're better equipped than them, and we're limited only, I guess, by that same thing, that this is what we speak for God in as much as He's spoken to us, and so we can share what His Word says and do that, but we don't need to chase this rabbit, but if sometimes people will say something like, I have this word from God, and well, what do you mean by that, right? What is that? And I would test all of those words against His word, and make sure they line up there, but and so that would be the limiting factor, I suppose.
Yeah. It's funny, I'm reminded of when a student's like, a guy likes a girl in youth group or whatever, and he's like, God told me. Yeah. And the girl's like, didn't tell me. Yeah. So testing he gets scripture. Sorry, that was a great illustration that I totally dumbed down to make a school, but it just reminded me of that. No. All right.
In one way or another, God probably was telling him that. But and just because she hasn't been enlightened yet.
It's coming.
Yeah, it
doesn't.
Coming. It doesn't mean
I would not preach
that's not from God. I would
just keep going.
Yeah.
Yikes. All right. Well, maybe that's for another time. We're going to wrap it up there. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will continue on next week.
All right.